Good morning, Venerable.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Yes, Venerable, you can start whenever you like.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I have to put my sound a little bit up. Is it all right like this?
I can hear you're fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. We have arrived at the last day of our 3-day workshop on opening the heart. And today we're going to have, the most special technique, I think, from Tibetan Buddhism. And we're going to talk about that and practice that. So far, we have been talking about the 4 immeasurable thoughts and about loving kindness and how to practice that. And we also have spoken about that when we practice loving kindness and compassion, that we feel more happy ourselves. And when we feel more happy, other people feel more happy about us. And when they feel more happy about us, when they see us, when they meet us, they're more willing to help us. They're more willing to protect us. They're more willing to take care of our needs. So practicing opening the heart is good for us. It's good for others, right? On all levels. And maybe you think, oh, but that is maybe selfish when I practice loving kindness and I'm gonna actually improve my own life. But that is like a very wise selfishness, right? It is very healthy. It is something that is good is not necessarily something that is good for us is not necessarily selfish in a bad way. When we speak about this is selfish, what we normally refer to, it is selfish and it leads to suffering. These things we want to eliminate from our life. But the things that are good for us, we should improve them, as long as they are good in the short term and good in the long term. So practicing loving kindness doesn't have any negative complications that will arise when we practice it. Nothing, not for ourselves, not for others. So there is no bad in that, even if it is good for us. So when we open our heart, what we do with others is that we look at the good in them, right? Even when people are, sometimes not so nice, sometimes they are noisy, sometimes they are annoying. When we start focusing with loving kindness and we see them through the eyes of, well, actually what they're doing is they're just doing that to be happy. They're just doing that to be free of suffering. When we can see that, we are less focused on the negative aspects. And so when we are less focused on the negative aspects, I think, I've never read it in Buddhism, but I know this from other cultures, when we focus on the good, this is Buddhism also says that when we focus on the good, the other person, the good in the other person will naturally come out more easily, that the good in others will feel supported, will feel invited, right? If I approach a stranger, seeing the good in that person is much more willing to show their goodness to me than when I approach that person with a mind that thinks, oh, you're an ugly man, I'm sure you're gonna harm me. If I really believe that, the person will feel that and the person will react from that. True? I'm sure you all have that experience, that when you walk on the street, thoughts about strangers come to your mind, about their qualities, right? Then we project that onto the person and the person feels that. In the same way, when we walk over on the street and people think about things about us, we get certain feelings arising in the mind. If people think good about us, we feel happy, right? If people don't think good about us, we don't feel happy. True? Have you recognized that? So when that is for us like that, then of course it is also for others like that. So when we can think good about others and, you know, thinking they want to be happy, that is not necessarily thinking good, but you're not triggering any negative aspects of their character, right? It is their natural wish wanting to be happy, and you remind yourself of that. So that is, I think that's a kind of a neutral wish. That is just an observation. You want to be happy. You're not saying anything about what they are doing, about their actions, about their character. You just say, I can see that you have the need to be happy. And so the person can feel acknowledged due to that. And then if you have a willingness to contribute to that happiness, that person will already start feeling more happy. Right? Same when we meet someone who's friendly. We call them friendly. But what happens in the mind of a friendly person is that they want you to be happy. That is friendliness. Right? So even just walking around and acknowledging you want to be happy. I can see that you want to be happy. I quite find you annoying, but I can see you want to be happy. When we can do that, other people will feel that. And they will react in accordance to that. So when we practice loving kindness and compassion, in that way, it can become a protection for us, right? If we meet a very kind person, there is nothing in us that wants to harm that person, right? It's very difficult to harm a kind person. True? If somebody gives us something, if somebody says something nice to us, it's very difficult to have angry thoughts coming to the mind. You think, oh, but they are kind to me. And you soften, you open your heart, right? So if we are kind, that same reaction will happen into others. It's very difficult for others to harm us. So in that way, practicing loving kindness and compassion is actually the best protection we can give ourselves. What we believe innately is that we need to harden ourselves in order to protect ourselves. True? When something unpleasant happens to us, what happens is that we have aversion and we say, oh no, I don't want to feel that. Please stay away from me. Don't let it come and touch me. Right? So we create a separation between us and the experience of unpleasantness, or the person who is the condition for us to experience that. We say, no, I don't want that. So that is a hardening, right? Separation is hardening. So when we keep the heart open and when we keep the heart soft, we can say, I can see, we first of all don't take it personally that if somebody wants to harm us, we don't think they want to harm me, you know. Sometimes people just have the tendency to harm whoever is in front of them. It has nothing to do with us. So we can say, okay, I can see that you are struggling and that you are frustrated and angry and unhappy. And because of that, you try to be separated from that. And so that's why you react in that way. If I can stay soft in myself and see that, and then recognize, but actually you want to be happy. And actually I can see that you also have good qualities. The other person might drop whatever they are doing. So in that way, staying soft is a very good protection. Right? And when we stay soft, we stay more connected with our true nature. And when we're more connected to our true nature, we have more access to all the qualities that come with that true nature. Our inner wisdom can come much easier. We have more skills to deal with someone who is difficult when we are soft inside. When we understand them, when we come from a place of, I can see where you're coming from. Right? When we say, I don't want to have anything to do with you, there is nothing else than just that. There is just aversion, there is just separation, not much more than that. True? This is what we are trying to think about, that being soft is actually the best protection. It is also the best way of finding happiness for ourselves, and it is the best way of bringing happiness to others. The way that we normally find happiness, we're going to talk about that today, and also why that doesn't work, and how we can transform, how we can use the method that we have at the moment for finding happiness, which doesn't work, how we can transform that in a way that it actually becomes the best way of finding happiness for ourselves and for others. So that's what we're going to do today. And I thought maybe before we go there, we can do a little physical exercise just to get some kind of idea how body and mind work together. And in Buddhism, we always work with the mind, you know, but I think if we combine that also with the body, it might tell us a lot about ourselves. It might tell us a lot about how the body and mind work together, and also how we can use the body as a tool to create conditions for the mind to more easily open up. When we start, for instance, meditating, we always find the right posture, right? The better the posture, the better the meditation. True? When we find a place where we can sit up straight and with a fully relaxed body, where all the muscles relax, it is much more easy for energy to come down. It's much more easy for the mind to focus. It is much more easy to sustain that focus for a long period of time. If we don't spend any time on the body and we just sit however we are sitting, the quality of the meditation will be influenced. I'm sure you all know that. Right? So with the body, you know, you all know that we use mudras, right? In Tibetan Buddhism, we use mudras, but also in the Indian tradition, there are a lot of ways of using mudras. So a mudra is an expression of certain types of energy. So if we think about closing my heart, if I would have to express with my hands what closing my heart means, you know? So, and I'm asking you to tune into that. What does it mean, closing the heart? You know, and then show that with your hands, how that feels. You know, for instance, you can do it. For me, it feels like this. If I close my heart, I'm going to feel like that. And you don't have to show me, you know, but just for yourself, if you find a way, what would your hands do if they have to express, if they would express closing your heart? And so you do that, and then you do that very tight, you know, very, very tight. You exaggerate, and you close the heart very, 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 very strong. And you observe the movement that you make, or the posture that you're holding on to. And you hold it for 3, 4, 5 more seconds, very, 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 very tight. And then you let it go, and you look at the opposite movement. What would your hands do if they move in the opposite way? And then when you do that, while you do that, try to observe what happens in your mind, how you feel. And then you can exaggerate that opposite movement. You make it very, very, very strong. And you observe again what you're feeling. And then you relax it. So is there a difference in the way you feel? Right. And so we can also do that in the bigger, right? We can do that with the whole body. And we can say, if I close my heart, if I'm very scared, if I don't want to have anything to do with anything, how do I do that? How do I express that? You know, and that can be, for everyone, can be different. But I would like to invite you to do that in your own space. If you feel uncomfortable, turn off your camera. Nobody's watching you, but just go into that space. Like, how would you express with your body if you feel like, I want to totally close my heart? And while you do that, feel what happens inside you. And hold that posture really tight for 5 more seconds. And then you let it go. And you bring your body to totally the opposite posture. You know, maybe you want to open up. Maybe you want to stretch. Maybe you want to, whatever works for you, whatever you feel like, wow, would be for me, totally giving my heart space for opening up. And then feel what happens in your body, feel what happens in your mind when you do that. And make it very strong, you know, very wide, as far as you can go. And then you bring your body back to the posture that you are sitting in, listening. And feel what happens. And maybe you can already feel a little bit of softening up. Maybe the energy, when it starts to soften up, it feels a little bit like clouds, you know, like you touch the clouds. You can feel that in your heart. Or maybe you feel something different. But I'm sure it must have some kind of effect. True. And so when you have done that, it can be more easy for the mind to do something similar, to soften up, to open up. Right? When the body is very stiff and very closed down, and then you start sitting meditating, trying to open the heart, it can be very difficult, right? Because you not only have to overcome your mental resistance or the mental obstacles that are there, but you also need to overcome what has been manifesting in your physical body. So if you remove that first, get that out of the way, you know, then when we meditate, it might be more easy. You can go more quickly to that feeling in your heart of softening and opening. Right? And so then you can also use your breath in that if you breathe deeply in when you stretch out, and then you breathe out when you bring your body back, and you can repeat that again and again, you know, maybe 5 times, 7 times. And then you start focusing on your mind, focusing on techniques that are going to help to open the heart. All right, are there any questions about this? Let me check. You can put it in the chat if you want. I go and have a look at that. Oh, somebody says I should record. That's true. I forgot. You had a question, Molly?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I was wondering, you were talking about how staying soft can help you in the long run, but my experience with it, what happens when you're afraid to be soft all the time because of just all the experiences that you've had, like, what do you do about that? Or like when you said like separation kind of is a negative thing, but like what happens when you're in an experience where you've done everything you can, and like, you know, people that block each other, you know what I mean? Like, is that, I'm confused almost if that's the right thing to do or not, or should I keep continuing to explain myself?
So I
know
think,
what I mean?
yeah, but I think so. What we do when we hear these teachings and we say, oh, aversion is separating and separating hardens us, and so we have to try not to separate but to stay open. What we hear is, I have to stay in bad relationships.
Right.
And I'm not saying that.
No, I understand that too. Yeah.
But also, so we need to protect ourselves with our wisdom, right? If we feel that by being with someone, we get limited, we get blocked, we get, then maybe your wisdom mind says it is time for me to go. But you can do that with a soft mind. And you say, sorry, it's time for me to go. Right? You do not have to keep trying. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to keep opening up for this person. I'm going to. So that's not what Buddhism is talking about. If something is not good for you, you need to leave. Right? What we want to become the best version of ourselves. We do not want to be in situations where we're constantly triggered and getting angry and getting frustrated and not being able to express who we are, or not being able to develop the qualities that we have. That's not suitable for your practice.
Right.
So you use your wisdom there and say, well, in this situation, I cannot develop my qualities. So time to move on.
Right.
And you can say that very firm, with no space for the other person to push you back in that old situation. But you can still say, but I can see that you want to be happy just as much as I do. I'm just not the person who is going to make you happy, because I cannot do that. But I really hope that you're going to find many other people who can make you happy. I'm also going to hope that you're going to find methods within yourself that are going to help you to make you happy. But I'm not the one who can do that, right? So there we have to discriminate in how can I do it so that I can be more soft, but I also feel safe, right? Because safety is very important in order to feel soft. If we are constantly scared that somebody's gonna hurt us because that person that we are with has a character like that, it's very difficult to stay open, right? You have two powers fighting with each other, and normally the feeling of I want to be safe wins, right? Not the feeling I want to be soft. We first need to be safe in order to be soft. So we need to take care of that. But what we normally do is we find safety by avoiding anything that can hurt. Right? And at a certain point in time, that is a good thing. In order to learn how to open up, it is good to first practice in a really safe environment. And once we have done that, and once the wisdom starts to develop more, we can move a little bit out of that environment that was our safety and go to an environment that was less safe for us, but due to the improvement of our skills, we might be able to handle that without getting hurt in the same way as that we got hurt before.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying too. It's just, it was really strange yesterday after we had done our meditation and left the class. I felt really good in the class, but then as soon as we all left, I felt really scared. And then I sort of felt like I didn't even want to be around anybody. Like I didn't want to go outside. I was afraid to be outside. It was really weird.
Uh-huh.
It was
So
just
maybe
such a strange sensation.
Maybe
Yeah.
you opened up so much, you know, that and maybe you're very sensitive for energy that is coming from others. And so you need to learn how to work with that, opening up, but at the same time making sure that you're safe. And I would say investigate that more. That when you do a meditation like that and you get these feelings of fear, what is that? And start to investigate that. Get more contact with that, get more information about that. Right? Because this is the learning process. How do we do that with all the experiences that we have had in the past? We all have had painful experiences. We all have had experiences where we felt like I have to shut down. So when we're gonna open up, these things might start to surface and we have to find ways to digest them and to let them go before we feel totally safe doing these practices. Okay.
Thank you.
It's work in progress.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me just do one question and then I want to continue with the Tonglen. Otherwise, I'm not gonna, and I will look at that question later. So Mali says, when you open up, it feels good, like there is so much to give, but I felt vulnerable as well. And so I had a feeling that I wanted to close a little bit. So when we open up, it is not that we open up, wow, straight away, right? It is, and maybe I already answered a little bit your question, Mali, we have to see how can I do that with my experiences of the past, with my skills that I have at this moment, so that when we become soft, that we also feel safe in that softness. Softness is often, you know, when we are little children, we are also very soft. And if we have experienced some harshness during that time from whoever was around us, it can be that we are very hurt in that very soft space of mind. So then when we start opening up, that feeling of being hurt, being vulnerable, that it is not safe to do that can surface. So you have to be careful with yourself. You have to do slowly. You need to keep looking what is coming to your mind. You need to go in a dialogue with your own mind, right? But we don't say, oh, therefore I'm not going to be soft because it doesn't feel safe. We say, how can I make it safe so that I can become soft? Okay. All right. How can we share love and kindness online? That's what we're trying to do right here. I think, I don't know about you, but when I teach online, I definitely feel my heart, you know, that different than when I'm face to face. But I also have the feeling that I can feel many of you. There is definitely a connection happening, which is weird, you know, because we are online, we are so far away from each other. But I think that the heart can do that, you know, just as when I close my eyes and I think of someone, you know, I don't know if you have had that experience that you think of someone and then suddenly that person calls you, right? Or the next week that person calls you and you think, wow, you were in my mind so much and now you call me. But I think we are communicating like that, right? We have forgotten that we have these capacities, but in long time ago, that was the normal way of communicating for human beings. And if you look into, I don't know, I once saw a documentary about Eskimos, you know, who go over huge distances on the ice. And then sometimes they have to stay for weeks somewhere before they can come back to their tribe. They communicate with their minds, you know, they don't have the phone with them, they don't have, but they know from each other what is going on. They receive messages from each other. So for them, that's a normal way of communicating. For us, when somebody can do that, we think, wow, they have a skill, you know, but we all have that quality. When the heart starts to open up, these kind of qualities naturally will start to surface in everyone. It's just part of our heart, you know, and so then a little bit of magic can start happening. Wow, how is this possible? But on the level of the heart, it's actually normal. Right? So even online, even if we are not together, we are together in some way. We are connected in some way. I don't know. I can feel my whole energy. I can feel the goosebumps, you know, when I connect with you, then it is there. For me, it is there. And I hope that you can feel the same, that there is an exchange, that you're not alone, that you're not separated. Although, you know, yes, it is a separation being in front of the camera or in front of the screen. But on a certain level, there is no separation at all. And so if you tune into that, you can maybe feel it. So today we talk about the Tonglang. Tonglang means that we're going to use our very unskillful way of finding happiness and we transform it in the most powerful way of actually finding happiness. So the way we find happiness, I spoke yesterday a little bit about that, is all around that self-grasping mind. We believe that the self, the I, exists in a way that in actuality it doesn't. Do you remember that? We contribute qualities to that I that in actuality are not there. We believe that that I is more permanent, that that I is unitary, that there is a self somewhere in us. And we believe that that self is independent, or that it is an objective, autonomous self, standing in and of itself, functioning in and of itself. Independence on that belief, you know, and first of all, you have to see that that self doesn't exist like that. And when you can see that, then you can see independence on that belief in self. Attachment arises in order to take care of the self. Attachment is, I need this, I want that, because when I have that, I think I'm going to be more happy. That is attachment, taking care of the self. Aversion takes care of the self in the sense that I don't want that. I feel that that is hurting me. I want that to stay away from me. I want to be separated from that. So around that self, we have things that we want to attract. We have things that we want to be separated from that. That self itself doesn't exist like that. So therefore, these reactions are not in accordance with reality either. But the way it appears to us is that they are. Hey, I have my needs, and I know when I have that, I'm going to be more happy. And I know when I don't protect myself from that with my aversion, I'm going to be very unhappy. And on a certain level, that is true, right? If we strongly believe in it, then the reality actually manifests like that. But these are emotional reactions, right? They are functioning all the time. We don't have to be aware of them. You know, when we when we walk over the street, for instance, we know automatically where we have to make a bigger step, where we have to be careful, where we have to automatically, the feet know where to go in order to make sure that you don't fall over, that you don't stumble, that you are safe and that you get where you want, right? We don't have to think about that. Sometimes we don't have to think about many things. We just do them, right? You don't think, oh, now I need to go to the toilet. You just go to the toilet, right? And sometimes there is a recognition of what is happening, but there is not a constantly thinking process that you need to be mindful of and that you need to be present with in order for that to function. True? When you eat, the same. There are little moments that you are aware, but most of the time we are not aware. We're just doing it automatically. True? So there is a system that, and it feels like, you know, I don't even have to put any effort in it. It just happens naturally and normally. It happens without thinking, but it also happens on the basis of my feeling. So attachment and anger, or attachment and aversion, they just follow the feelings. When there are feelings that I like, which are pleasant, attachment will be there to indulge more in it, you know, wanting more of that. When there are feelings that are not pleasant, aversion is there to immediately do something to move us away from that. That happens subconsciously, right? It's like following the feelings. You just follow the feelings and everything will be all right. And if you're good in that, you just go with the flow and everything will be all right. That is how we used to do things. And so what Buddhism does is they're gonna totally analyze, like, okay, so you believe that that is going to make you happy. Let's analyze. And they're going to analyze the attachment and the aversion and the actions that we do under the influence of attachment and aversion and where they actually take us. And when you analyze that into depth, then actually, because attachment and aversion are coming from a mind that is not in touch with reality, attachment and aversion do not have the capacity to actually bring you the happiness and the freedom from suffering that they make you believe they can. But we are so used to doing that, you know, even if I don't have full happiness, I have a kind of pleasantness. And although I do not have full freedom of suffering, at least I have some of it, right? It is not completely satisfactory. When we think about it, we do know that, and we also know that we still suffer, but we never contribute that to our own mechanism of finding happiness and wanting to be free of suffering. We think that is due to conditions. You know, I just didn't find the perfect guy, and I didn't find the best coffee, and I didn't find whatever. We think it comes due to the conditions that I haven't find that feeling of perfect happiness and freedom of suffering yet. But we still believe that if I keep doing this, maybe one day it will happen. And so then we keep using this. And Buddhism says, because what you're doing is not based on reality, it is out of touch with reality, that will never bring you there. And in order to get in touch with reality, you need to start applying reasoning. Because the habit and the belief is so strong in what we are doing, you cannot just change that. You know, I cannot, when I stop giving myself what I believe I need, you know, my mind goes crazy. I say, no way, I need that. And I will fight for it. So I need a lot of reasoning to say, but actually that's not good for you. Actually, that makes you more suffer. actually that is never going to bring you the happiness that you want. If you want this kind of happiness, you need to do this and this because of this and this and this and this. And so with these reasonings, I start to appeal to my own wisdom mind. I'm going to use my intellect that we have as human beings to check and to say, is that really true? I am feeling that. I totally have the belief that it is true what I'm feeling, but is it really true? So we start questioning and we start analyzing. If we find it is really true, fantastic. But if we find it is actually not true, then that insight can help us to change these deep-seated beliefs and habits that we have. Without that insight, it's very difficult to change the habit, right? Because you believe this is going to make me happy. Why would I change that? If you ask me to change that, it feels like I'm going to give up my happiness. No way, I'm not going to give up my happiness, right? So Buddhism says we do not give up our happiness. We do not give up our striving for happiness, but we're going to investigate the method that we are using on a day-to-day, on a minute-to-minute, how you say that? What we use day-to-day and minute-to-minute, we're going to investigate that method and see if it is really doing what you think it is doing. And if you can see that it is not, then we can apply another method that actually is going to bring you the happiness that you're looking for. Right? That is what we are trying to do. So now I'm going to tell you about the most insane method that you can apply in order to find real happiness. And in Buddhism, that has been a secret practice for hundreds of years, because the people who were doing this practice, they thought, if I start talking about it, people cannot do it because it is so insane. It is, people just never going to do it. But it is actually the most profound practice, and it is very easy to do. And if you have an affinity with it, it can change straight from the start your life. You know, I knew a professor. He was working in Australia, in Queensland, in the university, and he was a neuroscience scientist. So he was interested in, you know, Tibetan Buddhism in terms of what is happening in the brain, and he was doing research for that. But he also heard teachings about Tibetan Buddhism, and so he heard about this practice, and he suffered a lot from some problem in his stomach. I think every time, if he didn't eat on the right time, he got incredible pains in his stomach. And so, but due to his work, you know, he often came in a situation that he could not eat at that time that he actually wanted to eat. So he was sitting with that problem. And so he started doing this practice, and he said within no time that pain was gone. And he was so enthusiastic about the practice that he said everywhere where he would teach about neuroscience, he would start with this practice. He would say, oh, first I need to teach you something really fantastic that is going to help you with so many problems. And so he would teach that to people, and then he would teach his own story. So that's his reaction. The way it works is like this. You know, when we have a pleasant feeling arising in the mind, when we have the feeling, oh, I like this, what do? We say, I want more, right? I want more. And we set out to get more of that. When we have an unpleasant feeling, we say, no, I don't want that. I want to have less. How can I avoid this? Right? That's what we do. So the Tonglen practice turns this around. And so when we have something coming to us that we don't like, instead of saying, oh, no, I don't want that, we say, give it to me. not only give that one to me, but I know that there are many people out there who are experiencing the same as me, this unpleasantness. Give me also all that. I imagine that I take on all that so that they are going to be all free of that. And whatever I have that I like, that makes me happy, I know that many people have the wish for that as well. I'm going to imagine I'm going to give it all away. I'm going to not keep anything for myself. I give it away. And so the way we practice that, first you start to visualize, and then when you have some familiarity with the visualization, you can start doing it a little bit faster, and you can do it on the rhythm of your breath. And so then every time when something unpleasant happens, you say, I take it in. When I breathe in all that unpleasantness. I'm not going to resist it. I'm not going to try to push it away. I'm not going to separate myself from that. I'm going to totally embrace it. And then when pleasant feelings come, I breathe it out and I give it all away. I visualize. And you can do beautiful visualizations in order to give it away to all sentient beings. And so then you practice that on the rhythm of your breath, breathing in things, the suffering, breathing in the suffering, breathing out the happiness, breathing in the suffering, breathing out the happiness. And what you do with that, when you practice that automatic reaction of aversion and attachment, when you don't like something or when you like something, that automatic reaction, you counteract that. That automatic reaction that is the source of all your problems, you counteract that. And so when you counteract that, it's not there anymore. Or if in the beginning, it becomes less strong. And when you do this practice, for me, it has the effect that I do not believe so strong anymore my aversion and my attachment. Because I can see when I practice the opposite, I actually have the opposite effect. I actually become more happy than when I follow these feelings that I have and these reactions that I have. And so you're going to see that the way that I normally automatically respond, and if I change that into this Tonglen practice, the way that I feel is much, much, much better than if I just blindly follow my feelings. I'm going to feel a very different quality in my mind, more subtle, more relaxed, more peaceful, more easygoing, more, whatever you want to wish for, that starts to arise in your mind by doing the opposite of what we always do in order to find happiness. Insane, right? So in order to really practice this, you have to, first of all, you have to feel comfortable. You need some kind of wisdom, because otherwise you say, no way, I'm going to take that suffering onto me. I do not want to suffer. No, we don't want to suffer. We're not going to say, I want to suffer. But what you do is you have developed the wisdom that can see that by letting go of your resistance to whatever is coming to you, you actually experience so much less suffering and maybe even no suffering at all. And when we start practicing, we first visualize, right? We do not practice that straight in real life. We visualize. I visualize that for instance, when you walk on the street and somebody, I don't know, people shout at you or whatever, Normally you want to go away, you don't want to hear it. So how can I accept that, you know? And when I accept that, maybe I have to look at that other person. That person is maybe crazy, maybe he is suffering, maybe whatever is going on. I have some kind of idea what is going on for that person, and I take on, okay, I accept that you're shouting. I breathe it in, because I'm suffering from that, but I'm not the only person. So many people there, they have other people around them who are shouting all the time. I'm going to also take on their suffering. I'm going to take away all their suffering by taking it on myself. What you're going to feel very happy. It's very strange. And then when you have things that you like and that make you very happy, you think other people want that too. So I visualize, I give all that to them. And when you give things away, you start feeling very happy. And when you can do it by visualizing, you know, that when things happen in actuality, you have practiced your mind that you do not go into strong resistance and you do not go into strong craving. Your mind already has familiarity. Oh my, it's a difficult word this morning for me. Your mind already has familiarity with that. And so then when things happen in actuality, instead of going into your resistance, you can say, oh yeah, I remember that practice. I'll imagine I take it on. Which doesn't mean that when you get harmed or when you get hurt, that you don't do anything about that. But what it means is that your reactiveness, your reaction in your body and in your mind, that gets calmed down. Your wisdom mind is there to say, hey, that's not okay. Right? I do not want you to treat me like that. But you don't say it coming from anger. You say it coming from wisdom. And when you say these things coming from wisdom and maybe even from compassion, the reaction of that other person will be very different than when you come from anger. Right? The person will know that you mean it. The person will know that they're not hurting you, but what they're doing is not okay. And you will take action if they would continue, not from your reaction, but you're going to take action. Right? You think that makes you more powerful or less powerful? More powerful. Right? These reactions, they make us very weak, actually. You know, they make us very vulnerable for any influence from outside because they react to conditions. They're not based on reasoning. So whatever appears for us, we have these reactions arising in the mind. It's not something that we can control by saying, oh, I don't want to have that reaction. Right? We can only control them by understanding what is happening, by understanding reality as it is, and by practicing the opposite of that reaction. Right? And then opening the heart becomes a force, you know, it's not a weakness. Because it doesn't come just from, oh, I want to be a good person and I want to be loving and kind. It comes from understanding reality. And in that reality, of course, I'm going to be kind. What else? Right? Then you become really, really strong. As long as we have these reactions of attachment and aversion, I don't know. If you look at any commercial on the television, they all try to hook you there. If you look at anything where people try to achieve something, they try to hook you on your reaction of attachment or aversion. They try to say things in a way that you react with your attachment and aversion, and not with your thinking mind. This is our vulnerability. That reaction, that attachment is our vulnerability, not our softness. But softness can only come with knowledge, you know, and with understanding and with wisdom. Have you ever thought about that? Attachment is a vulnerability. We think attachment is my power. Attachment, I'm going to do anything with my attachment. Anything I achieve can be done with attachment. But in actuality, I think the more I look into it, I think it is actually, I mean, it can give you the appearance of some kind of strength for a while, but the foundation of it is not really, it's not based on reality. So at a certain point, it stops working. Does that make sense? Let me give you some time to say something about that if you want. And I'll have a look at the lesson. So there was this question about loving and kindness online. So when you want to send loving kindness and compassion online, just keep doing it, whether you see people or not, because it definitely has an effect. When people are meditating, they definitely have an effect on the area around them, you know, and the stronger your mind, the further that effect goes. So there was a question, so do we need to just meditate on this thought, or do we also take it into action? I think I already answered that. So we first practice in thought to feel comfortable with that. And then slowly, first with simple situations, and then, you know, eventually you want to have it, this quality, you want to develop it in a way that you can practice it in very difficult situations, you know, in case they occur. We never know what is going to happen. For instance, in Tibet, when the Chinese came to Tibet and many practitioners were put into prison, you know, this was the practice that they were having. They were using their situation to improve their loving kindness and compassion, and not to get into anger. And because they know that when there is a lot of anger in the mind, you destroy all the good qualities that you have in your mind. And so we never know how the world is going to develop, and we might need it at a certain point, you know. So you always need to be ready for whatever is going to come. So Sandra says, when I manipulate myself in this wise way, I feel that I need to stay very clear about my emotions, that I don't cultivate to be treated all the time not nice. Do I get this right? I find it an interesting way, the way you ask it. When I manipulate myself. I'm not sure if I would say it like that, you know. It is not a manipulation. It is an applying of reasoning to a very emotional way of reacting. You know, it is like a mommy saying to the child, no, you cannot have that cookie. You know, you're gonna be sick if you keep eating cookies. I don't know if you would say mom is manipulating the child when she says that. It can be very open and straight, you know. And so this is not developing this habit of taking on unpleasant feelings and letting go of pleasant feelings, or taking on suffering and letting go of happiness. That is not a permission for others to not treat you well, right? And it is also not that only our emotional reaction is an indication that we are not being treated well. Sometimes we react emotionally to people who have no bad intention, but due to our conditioning from the past, we think they have. And then we start reacting as if we are treated really bad, while in actuality we are not, right? So this you need to investigate with your intellectual mind, whether what you perceive emotionally is actually happening. Sometimes we are completely wrong in that regard. Sometimes we are treated bad and we think, well, we need to be kind and we have to accept that. Buddhism never ever says that, you know. Buddhism says you stay kind, but that is never a permission for the other person to do that. So you can address the situation in a kind way. You can walk away without getting angry, without having aversion. You can still say, no, this is not for me. Right? In order to change that, we need to, it takes time, right? You cannot just do that from one day to another. You cannot, from being an emotional reactive person, transform into a person who doesn't react emotionally and has all the wisdom there to know how to react or how to act in a skillful way. We cannot do that overnight. It takes time. And so that is a learning process where you get more and more information. The more you are mindful of the situation, you apply the wisdom that you have, you try it out, and then you think, oh, maybe this doesn't work. Why does it not work? Because we have many deep-seated beliefs which are also not in accordance with reality, you know. And so you hear about this practice and you start doing it, and some beliefs you are willing to change, but you have a lot of other deep-seated beliefs that are gonna react, or who it doesn't match with them, or they also still need to be transformed, and that only goes over time. You know, you slowly we start to discover, oh, that also is not right. I believed it is like that, but in actuality, it's not like that. Right? So you give yourself time. Okay, the next question. Normally when we deep breathe, we inhale oxygen and release carbon dioxide. However, your technique in a way is suggesting to inhale carbon dioxide and release oxygen, right? Well, I didn't really say that, no. I didn't say that anywhere. So this is the mind that then makes an assumption on what you heard me saying, which might not be true. So it's good that you checked. So it is not that I'm going to imagine like, well, everyone suffers from carbon dioxide, so I'm going to breathe that in so that people will suffer less. You know, this is not what we are doing. This physiology is still the physiology. And as long as we are deluded beings, we still need oxygen in order to breathe in and function, right? And we need to breathe out the carbon dioxide because that becomes a toxin if we don't breathe that out. So you keep doing that, but I'm talking about you breathe in the suffering, the feeling of suffering. Is that okay, Nena? One more question and then maybe we go to the meditation, where we're going to practice the Tongling together. How do you really know if we are responding or feeling emotions from a place of conditioning? That being hurt happened not because other person wanted to hurt, but because of our conditioning. I sometimes struggle to analyze it. Well, we can say that we are all conditioned, right? When we react, we always come from that place where we are conditioned. When we come from the place of being conditioned, does it therefore mean that that other person doesn't want to hurt us? Not necessarily, right? It can be a combination of both sides. So you need to analyze. Do you get to the right conclusion? Do you always find an answer? Not always, you know, but you try to constantly use your wisdom mind. And by doing that, by questioning, is that really coming from me? Is that coming from somebody else? Is that my conditioning? Where would it be related to? By doing that, you develop your wisdom mind. And slowly, slowly answers will start to come. And slowly, slowly clarity will start to come. And you get more and more insights into your own conditioning, into others' conditioning. And you can check, you know, a lot of, if we react, no, let me say differently. The way that we react in Buddhism, we say that is an innate response. That response has been there since beginningless time. This is not the first time we are here. This is not the first time we take a body. According to Buddhism, we have taken rebirth many, 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 many times. And that innate feeling of self, that feeling of self that we have, from where the attachment and the aversion arises, has been with us since beginningless time. And the conditioning has been happening since beginningless time. The fact that we react with attachment is a sign of the conditioning or a symptom of the conditioning. So that conditioning is always there. But then how much things, and so if I go onto that further, the conditioning is always there. If you want to practice Buddhism really, really, you know, really nicely, somebody hurts you. According to Buddhism, if you see it over all these lifetimes that you have had, somebody only hurts us because in one lifetime we have hurt them. And now that hurt is returning to you, right? So you could say, we say it like this. So this person hurts me now. This is hurt coming back to me. How kind of this person to help me to purify my negative karma. Because now I have experienced that hurt will never come back to me. But that person has now created a negative action due to my karma. So I have some responsibility for that person and for the suffering of that person, right? So I'm gonna help that person to be free of their suffering that they're gonna experience independent on that action that they did, independent on my karma, right? This is the way that you can think about conditioning. So you don't keep it just to this life, but you can make it really, really, really big. So in that way, it is always coming from us, you know. There is one saying in Buddhism that says all the suffering that we experience is all coming from the self-cherishing mind, from the self-grasping mind. All the happiness that we experience is actually coming from others. The self-grasping mind doesn't have any capacity to create real happiness. But I'm not sure if that helps your question, Nikita. The conditioning is extremely deep that we have. You know, Buddhism, we say, and this conditioning is the source of suffering. That conditioning itself is a suffering, because the conditioning prevents us to see ourselves for who we are. The conditioning is like a veil that obstructs us from seeing who we actually are. And so that in itself is a suffering, and they say it is as deep as the ocean, extremely deep. And to remove that from the mind, you know, that is an ongoing process. That takes a lot of time, because we have been conditioned for so many lifetimes.
The only thing that I get always confused about is, so I'm in this relationship with a person who I know loves me a lot and I love him a lot. But still there are a lot of things that happen where, you know, he says something which I know are not maybe coming from a place of hurting me, but still somewhere subconsciously, even he doesn't know it, that he's doing it to probably protect himself when he's doing that. So I don't, a lot of people tell me that, you know, you should not be in a relationship like this. It's not like he's hurting me a lot, or it's not like an abusive kind of a relationship. I don't want to create that impression. But it's just a regular, like any relationship you have with anybody, it's just that regular kind of thing.
Yes.
So, I don't know, it becomes very difficult for me to, like you said, when you are not getting the safe space to grow as a person, you should leave that relationship, or you should not be with that person. I'm not able to figure out in my situation what should be the right action for me to do. I'm kind of stuck in that pattern, trying to figure out whether this relationship or with this person is something that I need to continue and keep working on, or whether I need to not do that. I know it will not be easy.
There is no need to do anything, right? There's no need to stay in it. There is no need to leave it. You can do whatever you like, right? There is no one who says, oh, but you need to stay in that relationship because you can learn so many wonderful things, you know, or you need to leave the relationship because of this and this and this. That is just a thought. I need to do this. I don't think there is no one who tells you you need to, right? You can say for yourself, that relationship is still valuable for me, right? For instance, I still learn a lot about myself from that relationship. And that way it is very valuable, you know, then you stay in that relationship. I think with whatever relationship we have, because we are in what we call samsara, or cyclic existence, there is always suffering. You know, we cannot have a relationship where there's only happiness. But then we have to check what do we do with the suffering, right? It's like if you are with someone who is constantly holding you back, constantly, you know, being possessive, constantly telling you what to do, while that is actually something different than that you want to do, that is an unhealthy relationship. And you have tried to change it, and you talk to the person, and the person cannot see what they're doing. They want to keep doing what they're doing. You know, then at a certain point you have to say, I tried my very best, but I don't see any option for me to grow in this relationship. I leave, right? But if you are in a relationship where you experience hurt, but then you can express it, and while processing that hurt, you learn a lot about yourself, you know, and you find that valuable, why not? Right? So as long as you feel it has meaning for me and it contributes somehow value to my life, why not? right?
Yes.
Relationships are always a mixture, you know, there is love and then there is attachment, and with attachment always suffering comes. And so, I mean, there is no one in this world who has a relationship where there is no suffering involved. It doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. But what do you do with the suffering? That is what it comes down to. Can I use that suffering to transform my mind? Right? We suffer also because we are not perfect human beings. We have all kinds of flaws. We have ideas that are not in accordance with reality. We have beliefs that are not in accordance with reality. We are self-centered. We are close-minded. So when the hurt helps me to open up my mind, to open up my heart, to become more soft, to become more stable, more peaceful, why not? You know, I think that can be a wonderful relationship. But they're not going to be hurt-free, never. Sorry. Also, when you don't have a relationship, it's not hurt-free. You know, whatever choice we are making in this life, it's not going to be hurt-free. There's always some kind of suffering, right? When we think, oh, I want to have children because they're going to make me so happy. Yeah, maybe they do, but they also bring suffering. And then you think, oh, I'm not going to have children because they bring me suffering. Yeah, but not having children also brings you suffering. Right? No matter what choice we make, there is always some happiness, some suffering. And it is not about, I want to avoid the suffering, but I want to be skillful with the suffering so that when I walk through my life, I will be not swept away by the experiences that I have, but I will be able to walk through it, whatever is going to happen to me. Right? We can't change the nature of our existence. We can only change how we react to it and how we walk through it. And so if that relationship helps you to become more strong and to walk more straight and easy forward, great. You should cherish that person. You know? Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Okay. All right. One small one. How to counter rejection and love, and your life has taken away your financial status and peace. You know, being rejected is, I think, I don't know, one of the most painful things that we can experience in life. You know, being rejected for who we are, because we all have this deep need of being loved in all aspects of who we are. And so we're all looking for this unconditional love. And then when we go into a relationship and that person says, I don't like you anymore, it can be the most devastating thing that happens to us. And I think it happens to many of us, right? It has happened to many of us. It is very difficult, even from the people who love us most, to find that unconditional love. You know, even the people that are most close to us would like us to be a bit different. I wish you would walk a little bit more soft. I wish you would do this a little bit different. I wish you would, you know, we are still not loved for who we are. So I think the answer to that is that we can learn to love ourselves in each and every aspect that we have unconditionally. And that is very, very difficult, because that challenges us to love aspects that we maybe have the feeling nobody ever liked before. So how can we like it? We do not know how these aspects can be liked, you know? So That is something that we can learn. To be with ourselves and fully accept each and every aspect and be okay with that and be in peace with that and cherish all these aspects. When we can do that, then when other people say, I don't like you, we say, that's fine. You not liking me is not changing anything in me. You not liking me is going to give me the feeling that I'm not likable. You know, we cannot be liked by each and every sentient being because we all biased mind. You know, we all like and we all dislike certain things. But if we like ourselves, if we love ourselves, if we fully accept ourselves, at least we do not reject ourselves. We do not abandon ourselves. That can help to reduce greatly and maybe completely let it disappear, the fear and the pain of rejection. You know, then people can reject us, that's okay. No problem. Then taking money away, you know, these things happen. If you lose all your money, it happens. And in Buddhism, we contemplate on, you know, money, wealth, anything in life, it comes and goes. And we have lifetimes that we are on the top, and we have lifetimes that we are on the body, on the bottom, and we have lifetimes that we experience both. You know, we become very rich and then we lose everything. The main thing is not so much how much money you have, but how big your attachment to the money is. And so when you have strong attachment and you have nothing, you suffer a lot. And when you have strong attachment and you have a lot of money, you suffer a lot. Because you want to hold it all, you want to protect it all, you want to make sure that you're not going to lose anything. But when your attachment to the money is not so big, when you feel like even without any money, I still can live life, maybe not so easy without money, but I can still live my life, your suffering will be much less. So the suffering doesn't come from not having money, the suffering comes from having attachment to money. Right? Some suffering comes from not having money, for sure. But the most suffering comes from your attachment to the money. So if you can work on that one, you know, to say, I'm not the only poor person in the world, you know. Most of the people in the world do not have much. There are only a few people in the world who have a lot. So you share that with everyone. And there, I'm sure there are people who are more poor than you are. And you can think of them and look at how they live their life. And you can think, wow, if I suffer this much and I still have this much money and they have even less, they must suffer so much more. So maybe you're going to take on that suffering and say, I'm going to use my poverty, my loss of money, in order to practice the Tonglen. I take on all the suffering in the world that comes from poverty, that comes from not having enough, that comes from needs that are not met, you know, unmet needs. There's a lot of suffering. I take it on. And I'm going to imagine that I have all the money in the world and I'm going to give all that away. And then see what happens to your mind. And when your mind changes, it might be that your situation will change as well. I'll do one more, and then we just go a little bit over time with the meditation. Abhimanyu says, I have this contradiction in my mind when I try to love myself unconditionally and if I do that, then I'm turning a blind eye to my incompetence. incompetencies. And in such scenario, how can I motivate myself to keep on improving on my flaws and also love myself unconditionally? So you love yourself unconditionally in the situation that you are. Loving yourself unconditionally is not turning blind eyes. It's actually fully seeing for what it is. Right? If you love yourself unconditionally, you don't pretend you do not see your faults. You fully see your faults and say, having something in you that you see as a fault, you can even think, is it really a fault? You know, a fault is just an imputation. A fault is just a judgment or a labeling of something because you have a different view how it should be. You can also see every aspect in yourself and you say, however it is at the moment, for now, in this moment, it is perfect. We do not have to remove flaws. We need to see what is there as it is, and that it is totally fine as it is, right? We don't have to remove anything from our mind stream. Everything that we have, we can use to become enlightened. We don't want to get rid of anything. If I have a lack of patience, you know, I can see that my mind is reactive, but I can also see that the reason why I'm reacting is because actually there is a lot of hurt that I have not been able to feel. And so I'm going to reconnect with that hurt and I'm going to totally feel it. And while I'm feeling it, my patience is growing, right? So instead of saying, oh, you're such an impatient person, you should become a more patient person, I'm going to go underneath. Why is that quality hasn't been perfected? Because I've not been able to do this, I have not been able to do that. And the moment I try to go there, I'm already improving the qualities. I don't have to do anything to make that happen. I just need to reconnect more and more with each and every aspect in myself. Qualities will arise when I do that. Right? We believe we are imperfect people, we have to change, we have to become more perfect. But I think that's a mistake in the way we think, you know, because it's somehow, I feel it is even an aggression towards ourselves. You know, you're not perfect yet, you have to change. No, maybe you are perfect, you just can't see it. If you could see your perfection and you don't want to change anything, you become that. And you create the ground for change to happen naturally. Like a tree grows, you're not saying to the tree, oh, that branch is on the wrong place. You should have put it a little bit higher, or you should have made it more straight, or, you know, the tree grows the way it grows. And what we do is we try to create a condition so that a tree can keep growing. But however the tree grows, it's perfect. It's exactly how it needs to be. All right? Don't remove anything of yourself, you know? Don't see flaws as flaws. Flaws are not, normally there is suffering connected to flaws, you know? There is, try to see that suffering. And try to be there. Children who have flaws, I mean, I worked a lot with children, and I always felt that when you really can see the reason behind the flaw. You already created conditions for the flaw to disappear. Whatever you saw as a flaw disappears. It's just an aspect of ourselves that has been cut off the light, you know, just give it light and it starts growing. That's my experience, you know, but you have to try if that works for you too. All right. Shall we go to the meditation? Meditation on Tonglang. And so what we're going to do is, I will tell you when we do the meditation. I will tell you in the meditation. So first of all, make sure that you sit comfortable. You can close your eyes. Relax your body. Relax your mind. And then think of a problem that is currently troubling you. And choose a medium-sized problem or a small problem, not a big one. It can be a physical problem, some painful feelings or uncomfortable feelings that you have, or an illness. It can be an emotional problem, such as feeling hurt or feeling lonely. And allow the problem to arise in the mind and feel how painful it is, how your mind wants to push it away. And then while you experience that suffering, be gentle with yourself. Make sure that you feel safe in yourself. And talk kindly to yourself, like you would talk to a good friend who has experienced something that you experience right now. And while you speak kindly to yourself, accept whatever problem there is fully. You can imagine that you invite it, that you embrace it. It is there. You say, I'm not going to fight reality. This is something that is there. And then think, I am not the only person in the world experiencing a problem like this. There are so many others. Maybe you know other people who have a similar problem. But even if you don't know them, just think of them. There are people with these kind of problems. Many have problems even to a greater degree than you have. And so try to generate compassion for them by thinking and really feeling how wonderful it would be if all those people could be free from their suffering. And then you can decide that you will accept or take on your own experience of this problem with the compassionate wish that by doing so, all those other people will be free from their suffering. So by me taking on my problem, all people who experience a similar problem will be free from all their suffering. So let go of your resistance, of your fear, and of your aversion for the problem. And allow your mind to rest in a gentle, peaceful acceptance of it. And then we can practice this also in relation to the problems of others. And for this, imagine in front of you someone you know, someone you love, who is suffering. Imagine how it would be if you would experience that suffering, and how you want to be free from that suffering. So that person in front of you wants to be free from their suffering that much. And then think, I wish I could help. I wish I could do something that would free that person from suffering. And you can think, I'm going to take that suffering away. I'm going to visualize that suffering in the form of dark smoke. And I'm going to breathe that in. And in my heart, at the center of my heart, at the center of my chest, there is myself, my self-grasping mind, from which all the delusions arise. And I visualize it as a black, dark rock. And when I breathe in the suffering in the form of dark smoke, I will let that hit onto the rock, which then cracks open and light comes from it. And that light carries everything that person in front of me needs in order to be free of suffering, in order to be happy. And I'm going to send that out to them. And when that light touches them, they are free of their suffering. They are relieved. They smile. And you might have to do that a couple of times. You breathe in all their suffering in the form of black, dark smoke. And that hits you in the rock at your heart, your self-grasping mind, which then cracks open A light comes from it, which you send towards the person in front of you, giving them everything they need, releasing all their suffering. And do that a couple of times. And then do it on the rhythm of your breath. You breathe in all their suffering. When you breathe in, you visualize that suffering coming towards you in the form of dark smoke. It hits you in your heart, which cracks open and then radiates out beautiful white light. And when you breathe out, that light goes out to the person in front of you, giving them happiness, joy, peace of mind, whatever they need. You can visualize that light from your heart in the form of any material thing. You can visualize it in the form of love, in the form of friendship, in the form of inner qualities. Whatever that person in front of you needs, you give it to them. You breathe in their suffering. You breathe out whatever they need. You breathe in deep dark smoke. You breathe out light. And slowly, slowly, you see the person in front of you changing. The suffering becomes less. They start to relax. And they feel so grateful towards you. And you feel joy. It's so great to help others in this way. How wonderful that I have the capacity to do this. So amazing. And so this practice you can do with any type of suffering. You can do it with your own suffering. You can do it with the suffering of your loved ones. You can do it with the suffering of people that you don't know. And you can even do it with the suffering of people that you do not like. But you gradually train your mind. And you do it in a way that you feel comfortable with your practice. You don't take on too much. You take on what you feel you can. And then coming to the conclusion of this meditation and also of this course, we visualize that we gather all the positive energy that we have generated by doing this. And you can visualize that in the form of a white light that you gather above your head in the form of a white ball. And it becomes the size of a few inches. And then enters the crown of your head, sinking down your central channel, and coming to rest at your heart. Where it opens up, starts filling your whole body, and then starts flowing over to all the sentient beings in this world, in this universe, spreading in all directions as far as you can imagine. And that energy touches each and every sentient being, filling them with blissful energy, fulfilling all their needs, and bringing them all temporary and ultimate happiness. And then I can only thank you for being here, for having joined these classes on opening the heart. And I hope that you have received some benefit from them and that you got a little bit of taste from the methods that we have in Tibetan Buddhism to help us to open the hearts. And any of the things that we have practiced, like the 4 immeasurables and the meditation on loving kindness that we did yesterday and the Tonglen meditation of today, if you would practice, I mean, you can do all of them, but you can do also just one of them every day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, giving yourself the time and the space to open your heart. I'm sure you will slowly start to transform your life. You will become a more happy person. You will become a more easy person. Things will start getting more smooth in your life, more easy in your life. And you will be of so much more benefit to whoever is around you. So I hope you will continue something that you have learned in these 3 days. Totally rejoice in any attempt that you're going to do in that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Venerable, so much from Tushita team as well as everybody here who participated. Thank you so much, Venerable. And we have another course coming up with Venerable Jamyang in November. I will post the link here, so you can stay tuned for that. And yeah, I think, yeah. So if you would like to make any offerings for Venerable Jamyang as an appreciation, then you are most welcome to do that. So when you registered for this course, you received a link. So in there, the donation link is given there, so you can make donations for Venerable Jamyang as well as for Tushita if you have the means to. And few of you made donations already, so we deeply appreciate your support. Yeah, thank you, everyone. your time and for your effort, and stay happy and stay safe. And we hope to see you for the next course with Venerable. And we have other courses also going on. Emptiness course with Venerable Jamyang is going on. Venerable Doma, is going on. We are moving to the second week. And then we have Venerable Jamyang's course. And then after that, we have course with Geshe Lakdodla, Director of Tibetan Library. So everything is there on our website. So I'll put the link here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Neha. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tema. Bye-bye.
Bye.